Steelers Nation, it's Joe Rocky with the Pittsburgh Syndicate. And in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the defense from the first preseason game and what we saw we can be excited about. Yesterday, obviously, we covered the offense. So if you're looking for any takes on the offense, you got to watch yesterday's video. This is strictly about the defense. Now, diving into it, obviously, the starting defense, most of them did not play. Obviously, the defensive front did not play. Neither did TJ or Highsmith. And our five most important in the secondary in Joey Porter Jr., Wallace, Peterson, KZ, and Minka all were off, which basically only left the starters of the middle linebackers. And in those two, I actually really liked what we saw out of both Roberts and Quan Alexander. Alexander, I think, is one of these guys that's going to end up being a very great late in the process steal. As we see last night, both the running backs, Zeke and Galvin Cook, signing late in camp and being like, oh, it's going to be too late to participate. I thought the same thing was going to be true with Quan Alexander. Him coming into camp basically on the doorstep of it starting, not being part of any of the OTAs, but he is showing up and making plays. And to a note on the tackle where he got his flag on, I don't think there's anything that they can do about that. I mean, at the end of the day, by the letter of the law, he hit the dude's helmet. He grazed the face mask. He was going for the ball. And with them putting in the rule that you're not allowed to lunge anymore, how can you play defense if you're not allowed to dive and make a play? I mean, like, it is being something that is essentially encouraging offenses to run to the outside if you were going to make this rule. I think it's a very poorly drawn and bad idea that they're trying to accomplish here in the NFL. So I personally didn't think it was a penalty. I thought it was a good, clean tackle, and it's what you want. And overall, you definitely could tell when Alexander was on the field and when he wasn't. And when that's a positive light, in this case it certainly was, that is one of the things that you really need to look for and say, well, this guy should be getting more playing time. If the defense is looking much better with him out there, keep him out there. I think that's something that's very important to critically start how much Quan Alexander was great. Because we're seeing a buzz in articles today saying that Allen Robertson is going to be your sleeper starter at linebacker. That ain't happening. I mean, he's not ahead of Roberts. He's not ahead of Alexander. And then there's another veteran that we also have that we signed who's just waiting to get happy. Robertson could be a great story. He's just not there yet. And that's a fact of life. Now, the fact Quan Alexander only signed a one-year deal, maybe you feel comfortable doing more rotation there next year. But when we look at the rest of this team, it's really the only position we're having a ton of turnover at. You know, the quarterback is now set. The entire offensive line is essentially set. The receivers are. The running backs are. So when we look at this and say, why are we only having turnover there? It's just unusual for the Steelers because we look around every other major position, they are what they are. With the exception of a high draft pick stepping up to push someone like Porter, we don't have crazy turnover. And I would love to have some continuity, have it stay. I think it would help a lot for not just this year, but for the future going forward. And Quan Alexander, to me, could be a great person to build around. But I also don't want to give shade on Roberts because Roberts made some very consistent plays. He's going to be in that mold of the James Farrior type. It's going to be, he's going to blitz those rare times you need him, but more importantly, he's going to make consistent plays. And if we have this ability of just making the consistent plays with random blitzing capability, which both Alexander and Roberts have, it opens up the possibilities for this defense through the roof. Because we haven't had successful middle linebackers blitzing in a very long time in Pittsburgh. And what we've been doing is having Highsmith or Watt come into the center of the defense when we want to exploit a center. But if we can do it in multiple different ways, well, then now you're just opening up possibilities and making your defense now dictate. Now, one of the things that I found interesting with who dressed and who didn't was the slot cornerback room. Chandler steps up and makes a great play, shutting the ball down on a play that everyone in the world read Minka, and he did too. There's no criticism. You read the play, you make the play. Baker's not exactly a good quarterback. I mean, let's be real here. So there were a lot of great plays, people stepping up and making it. And Chandler is certainly was an example of that. And when we go through this, I'm not super, obsessed with his great coverage ability because I don't really think it exists. But if we're able to have read and react like that, it's not going to matter. Because if you're tackling people short of the sticks, that's all that matters. You can let up 100% of your passes on third down if none of them convert. So that's a fact of life. That's something that's going to be interesting to keep in mind with the slots. Something to also note, yesterday during practice, Minka basically was playing within the line of scrimmage as that old Mike Hilton role. Maybe I'm covering, maybe I'm blitzing you role, essentially the entire practice. And I think that that's something interesting to keep in mind when we're looking at how the Steelers are attacking this slot position. Because we've also had reports of Peterson sliding down into the slot. And if they're comfortable with Porter and Levi Wallace being on the outside, with Minka and Peterson being your slots, that's a really good defense to step up against people. Because remember, the NFL has shifted. A lot more passes go to the slot, or at least the receiver that lined up in the slot, than they do to the outside. That's why we're seeing the elite receivers, the J-Jets, the CeeDee Lambs, converting inside and outside, rather than just being exclusively outside like back in the day receivers, like we can think of. Like, for instance, Marvin Harrison never played in the slot in his life. Great receiver, just didn't happen. That's not how this world is. And Cooper Kupp is mostly the reason for that. So back all this up. Why does it matter? Peterson's a Hall of Famer. Minka probably is going to be. And having them covering people on the inside really puts pressure on what used to be the soft spot of this defense. And I really love the way that the Steelers are attacking this. I do believe that the defense is what's going to have to carry this team moving forward. As much love as I was giving to the offense, the defense is here. The offense is trying to catch up. There's nothing wrong with that. He's a second-year quarterback. What else do you expect? But with this pass rush that we're going to be having, it is going to be great. Now, when we talk about the pass rush itself, I personally was a little sad to see that Herbig didn't get a lot of love early in the game, given the fact that Highsmith and Watt were both sitting out. Now, you could say that this is part of Tomlin having the rookie to prove himself. And I certainly understand that. When Herbig was out there, his presence was felt. Obviously, in a less intense situation, being with lower down the depth chart guys than what Quan Alexander was doing in the beginning of the game. But still, I believe Herbig clicked enough boxes to be able to take a step up, to be higher in the rankings. And what I really hope is that hopefully by the third preseason game, when all of the starters are benched, that Herbig has worked himself up to be at least a first half player, if not a starter at the outside linebacker position. Because I really think it would be of a great value to the team to have Herbig step up. Remember, this guy has been showing so much great changeup to the team. And Herbig's real claim to fame is his speed off the edge. And Watt obviously has everything. But when we're looking at Highsmith is much more of a balanced power type edge rusher, similar to the way we describe Najee on offense. Having the changeup of a pure speed guy replacing Highsmith is really how you just mess with batters' heads if it was baseball. You get someone in there who's only throwing low 90s with some lots of change-up type stuff, which is what Highsmith does, and then boom, put someone out there who's throwing 99. It's going to mess with your lineup. It's also going to mess with a tackle's head, if to use that analogy all the way through. And I really think that Herbig is going to have a chance to sneakily get to that 5 to 10 sack rating. And doing that as a rookie is massive. And I believe the opportunity is there for him in a way that, we really don't normally see coming out of rookies, but it's all because of the situational usage and how much different it is whenever we have Highsmith setting the tackle up and then boom, catching him off guard. Tomorrow's episode is going to be about our tackle battle. We're going to be talking about Big Dan Moore and the first pick, Broderick Jones. Steelers Nation, we love being with you. Be going tomorrow. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go.